Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Here is a speed paint of an acrylic painting. It's 8.5 inches by 10 inches and it is tulips in acrylic, and I'm using a photo from Paint My Photo, and I will put the link in the video description so you can find that yourself if you want to follow along. Now I will have the long version of this tutorial up on my channel. Give it a day or two because it is a very long video. It took me 47 minutes to paint this. That's how long the full-length video is going to be. So if you do want to follow along and paint with me, make sure you look for that video. I've used some ultramarine blue and white in the sky, and now I'm using some sap green on the bottom third of the painting, and I'm mixing in some cadmium yellow as I go. And this is just going to give me kind of some texture in the foreground, and it'll actually just kind of fade to the background when we put our subjects, the tulips, onto the picture, but it gives us a nice base and a nice fullness to the picture, which is a nice little fake to do when you're doing a quick painting like this. And this is a demonstration that I worked up for a class that I'm doing tonight, so I thought it'd be fun to share it with you guys too. So now what I'm going to do is switch to a round brush, and I am just going to base coat in with some white, blockout white chromacryl paint. I'm just basing in some of the tulips here. I'm putting in my 3 focal point tulips first, just to kind of see how that looks with 3. But then I quickly decided that I wanted to have a couple others in there that would be a little bit fuzzier and further in the background. So I'm sketching those in there. So if you've ever been interested in painting with acrylics, or maybe you've done a little bit of acrylic work and you just want a kind of a different, you need a different project to try, I do urge you to check out the full-length tutorial as soon as it becomes available, because I think you would find it quite useful, especially since it's painted in real time and you can follow right along. I added a little bit of yellow and red into those background tulips there because I wanted them to be kind of fuzzy and out of focus, so that's why I kind of put that in right off the bat. And I'm taking my round brush and some sap green and just adding stems to these tulips. Now before I can go on and add any more, I'm going to need to dry this with my heat tool or hair dryer, which I did, and now I'm going over with more white paint to kind of block everything out, so I'll have really, really bright tulips in the foreground. So there's a little trick for you. With acrylics, you can always add more, and you can't really do that with watercolor. You can always add more, but you can't really cover up what you had before, so that's just kind of a nice advantage. I think that acrylics are a nice medium for beginners to get into because it is so fixable. Now what I'm doing here is just using a little bit of red, and I am drawing some of the details onto these tulips here. And then I'm adding a few little highlights with some white. Now I'm blending wet into wet with the acrylic paints, so it's acting a little bit more like oils. And you'll be able to see that in more detail in the longer video if you choose to watch it. And if you just want to watch a painting happen pretty quickly, then this is the video for you. Now I'm going to do the same thing here with this flower in the middle. I'm painting it all yellow, and then I'm going in kind of on the edge of a flat synthetic brush. It's kind of a fine tip brush, and I'm just kind of tapping in with the edge to separate the petals there, so I'm getting it more defined and more detailed. And now I'm taking that same brush and just kind of blending it into the yellow to get that kind of orange. Now I mixed a little blue into that mix and got some gray, and I'm mixing that in too. And I know I'm going really fast here, but this is for those of you that just want to see a quick overview. If you do want more in-depth explanation, then again I will remind you to go to the full-length video. And I'm adding some highlights with some white, and I'm painting quick enough that I can blend into the wet paint underneath. So I think that's kind of important to note. If you fuss with it too much, your paint's going to dry and your paint will drag when you try to do that. So just to give you the heads up there. And I dragged a little bit of green on both of those flowers that I just painted where the stem and the flower connect, and that just gives it a nice segue from stem to flower, and it helps it look a little more natural. And I'm pretty much doing the same technique to this last flower over here. Again, loading up a little bit of red on the edge of my brush so I can tap in those edges of the tulips, and they have this really pretty kind of just outline of red on the edge of the tulip petals, and I think that's just such a nice effect here with the acrylic paint, and definitely a painting that you can do and a pretty easy effect to achieve. So I do hope you try it. And again, with the white highlights, I think the highlights really help the flowers kind of come to life. Now I think the next thing we're gonna do will be to paint those other 3 flowers, the ones that aren't really our focal flowers. Oh, I dragged a little bit of green in there. You see that from the stem onto the flower? So for the background flowers, the ones that are kind of fuzzy and out of focus, I didn't block them out with that extra coat of white because I wanted them to be kind of fuzzy. I'm using a natural bristle brush and just kind of loading it with white and yellow and just kind of really painterly chopping in those leaves. I don't want to have the petals. I don't want to have too much detail on those. I want those to be more of supporting roles, and the first 3 flowers I painted to be the stars of this painting. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're doing a painting, to define your foreground and your focus objects, and then to have the supporting roles that just kind of fill in and balance the piece out, and that's what I was really trying to go for here. You can define the stems a little bit like I am. I'm adding a little bit of yellow and white to the green to make the stems kind of stand out a little bit more and be a little fresher looking. You can see I'm mixing on my little makeshift palette. And again, watching the longer video will show you exactly how I mix the colors if you're confused or if you want more information. I just thought, nobody's gonna watch a 47-minute long video, and this will make it a little bit more enjoyable for those of you guys that want a shorter context. Now I wanted to put some like blades of grass. You know how like the tulips have those kind of long leaves kind of, and I wanted to get a couple of those in here because I wanted something really dark to give the contrast between the really bright tulips. So I'm using that as a design element, and in a second you're going to see me make a huge mistake and you're going to see how I fixed it. So I painted in this leaf and I thought it would be great if it went behind a couple stems because then it would help kind of bring the eye across the paper, but then I looked at it and it looked really hard and angular, and it almost like sent your eye off the edge of the paper and just looked extremely bad. So what I'm doing here is taking a wet brush and I'm scrubbing it out and just blotting it off. So I just erased it. See, it wasn't that bad. And you're probably seeing a little staining, but I just dried it and then the staining went away. So sometimes when you have water on top of acrylic paint, it will look lighter, but then once it all dries out, it does go back to normal. So as long as that under layer was pretty dry, you can wipe out your mistakes pretty well. So I decided to put in a softer green grass there in the front and put it in front of a stem so I didn't have to try to go around things and have it awkward. And that, you know, pretty much finishes up the painting. I'm adding a little bit of highlights, just the frosting on the cake there, just little bits of white to brighten up those focal flowers, and then that just about does it. I'll finish up with a coat of water-based varnish when it's completely dry, and that's all she wrote. Make sure you check out the longer tutorial if you want more information. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Share it with your friends on Facebook, Pinterest, and wherever you share things. And until next time, happy crafting.